So last week and last weeks, we're talking about the idea of Yiras Hashem and how Yira is the foundation of Avodas Hashem. And the words that Rebbe quotes from the Zohar, that if a person doesn't have Yira, doesn't have Yiras Hashem, so there is no Kedusha. And as we spoke about this at length last week, and we can talk about it more in Mitzvah Hashem as we go on this week. Earlier on in this Perek, what we spoke a few weeks ago, the Rebbe gave a whole hisbonenus, a whole meditation, what a person can think in order to bring to Yiras Hashem. A person should think about how the greatness of Hashem, and even though that Hashem is so great, the great King of all the worlds, the higher worlds and the lower worlds, but the Eibishter, none of that is important, and not the higher worlds, not the lower worlds, but Miyachid, Malchusay, El Ama Yisrael, that Hashem wants to be the king over Klal Yisrael. He wants us to do Torah, to do mitzvahs. He wants us to learn Torah. And then as we continued, and also individually, because every single person has to say B'shvili Nivra Olam, so therefore individually also, Hashem, the king of everything, is Pasha standing and watching and waiting for you to accept him as his king. And this is a meditation that the Rebbe said, if a person thinks about it appropriately, will bring him to Yiras Hashem, to an awe of Hashem, reverence for Hashem, fear of Hashem. And then the Alter Rebbe continued, as we spoke about 2 shiurim ago. The Alter Rebbe says that what if a person doesn't have a blazing yira in his heart? Says Alter Rebbe, that's fine. As long as that you have the yira in your mind, even if in your mind you can develop some sort of yira, that's also enough. And now we will continue. Page Nun Zayin, again opposite of page 112, halfway down from the top of the page where it says Vihine. First word in the line.
After the 2 dots, right?
Yeah. Vihine af mishagam b'moichi v'machshavtei eni margishum yiro busha. Before we said, what if a person doesn't feel yira in the heart, doesn't feel a strong emotion of yira, of awe, of fear of Hashem, but at least in the mind the person feels the yira. Says the Alter Rebbe, that's fine. What if a person, even in their mind, even though they contemplate, the meditation that we mentioned earlier, and think about Hashem's greatness, think about how Hashem is mamish right here, right in front of you, looking at you, watching you, and waiting and hoping for you to serve Him. But what if even so the person cannot awaken a yira, a fear of Hashem, and a busha, a humility before Hashem, even in his mind? And what is the reason for this? Says the Alter Rebbe, it may not be your fault. If you haven't taken the time to be properly misbeinen, if you didn't take the time to properly meditate, then you're at fault. But what if you thought about it, you meditated on Hashem's greatness, and even in your mind you're not coming up with a yira? And the reason for this is this is usually a result of the fact that your neshama is from a low level, from its source, from where it is taken. This person has a neshama which comes from the lower levels, the Yud Sfiris, the Asiya of the 10 Sfiris of Asiya. We know there are 4 spiritual worlds. Every world is a higher level of spiritual awareness and spiritual consciousness. The lowest world is the world of Asiya. And in the world of Asiya, there are the lowest Sfiris. So if a person's neshama comes from that level, from the lower Sfiris of the world of Asiya, so therefore the person has a soul which is highly insensitive. And therefore it's possible that even though the person's misbein and thinks into the greatness of Hashem, he should not be able to awaken within himself a yira even in the mind. Says the Alter Rebbe, Afal Pikein, nevertheless, because this person, when he learns Torah and when he does mitzvahs, when he serves Hashem, in his mind is thinking, I'm doing it in order to serve the king. So this is avodah. This is considered avodas Hashem. At the end of the day, why are you doing the mitzvah? Before you did the mitzvah, before you learned Torah, you stopped and thought about how the greatness of Hashem, and how Hashem is this great king. So even if you don't have, even in your mind, you don't have the moira, the fear. But if at the end of the day, that thought is what's causing you to do the mitzvah, so therefore that's considered avodah. Why? Because at the end of the day, when you're doing the mitzvah, your intention is to serve Hashem. And says the Alter Rebbe, Ki hayira v'avoida nachshavis l'shtei mitzvahs b'minyan taryag. Yiras Hashem and avodas Hashem are two different mitzvahs. One mitzvah is as Hashem alikecha tira, and then the pasuk says v'oisei savoidu. So even if you're not doing the mitzvah of yira, you're still doing the mitzvah of avoida. Ve'enan ma'akvei zu azu. One of them, they're not dependent upon each other. So therefore, you can be mekayim the mitzvah of v'oisei savoidu, of serving Hashem, even if you don't have a yiras Hashem. That's number one. The oid then says Alter Rebbe, I want to tell you an even bigger chiddush. Shebe'emes, in truth, mekayim gam mitzvahs yira. You're also doing the mitzvah of yira. When you're thinking about yira, even if you don't have this feeling of yira in your heart or in your mind, but if you're thinking, I have to fear Hashem and therefore I'm doing a mitzvah, that too is a yira, even if you don't have any emotion at all. Not in your heart, not in the mind. At this moment when you're doing the mitzvah, at least at this moment you have the fear of heaven upon you, at least at least as much as you have a fear of a simple human being, not a king. A human being who is not a king, who is looking at you, that when someone else is watching you, so you refrain from doing something that isn't proper, something which isn't proper in the eyes of that person. This is also called yira. So the Rebbe here is being mechadish, that even if there is no fear, but if in your mind you're thinking, Hashem is watching me, so I have to do what He wants me to do, and I can't do otherwise, that's also called yira. At least as much as the yira that you have of a fellow human being, that when you're standing in front of another person, you don't do something that's inappropriate. Even though that your fellow human being, you don't fear him, he's not in any way superior to you, he's not greater than you, he doesn't have any power over you, but at least you have that meira. And Dr. Rebbe is going to bring a raya from a very famous Gemara, that it says that before Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, so his Talmidim came into him, and there was a whole conversation, and towards the end of the conversation, the Talmidim asked Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that he should bench them. He was obviously in his last moments of his life. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, Yehiratzen, Shehei Meira Shamayim Aleichem, Kemeira Basar Vadam. That I'm benching you, that it may be the will of heaven, that you should fear Hashem like you fear your fellow human being. So the students were a little surprised at this. And they said, that's all? We should only fear Hashem only as much as we fear a fellow human being? Aren't we supposed to fear Hashem so much more so than we fear a fellow human being? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, no, halavai, you fear Hashem as much as you fear a fellow human being. Because when another person is standing in front of you, you don't do something wrong. And halavai, that your fear of Hashem should be on that same level. This past Shabbos, I was sitting in 770 before davening, and I was learning a little chassidus. And there's an older Jew sitting, with a white beard, sitting a few seats down from me, and he was in an animated conversation. Also, he was learning a Maimer chassidus, and I eavesdropped, and he was saying something which I thought was very profound. He said, Yira is much greater than Ava. Why is Yira greater than Ava? Because Ava, you could love something which is very distant from you. It's the contrary. When something is very distant from you and you want it, so you feel a very strong yearning for it, and you feel a very strong desire to fear something, it has to be in front of you. It can't be distant from you. If you fear Hashem and you're not doing an Aveda, it's because Hashem is right here. He's right here watching you. It's a reality. Ava can be something distant from you. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, going back to what he was saying, is that you're saying that halavai, because the other person is real, and he's watching you, and halavai, that Hashem should be that real for you, that you should abstain from doing something because you know He's there and watching you. But the words that Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai uses is K'meira basar v'dam. Meira, yira, that you have fear of your fellow human being. So, when someone else is in the room, and therefore I act in a certain way, and I don't act inappropriately because the other person is in the room. So, Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai is calling that meira, is calling that yira. Why is that yira?
Because the basar v'dam is right close.
No, but do I fear the person?
You're ashamed to do something wrong.
But there is no fear. He's not greater than me again. He's not stronger than me. He's not more powerful than me. He can't do anything to me. No, but still, the fact that I abstain from doing it, so I don't have an emotion of fear for the person, but nevertheless, the fact that he's watching causes me not to do it. Says the Alter Rebbe, the same thing is, even if you don't have a fear of Hashem, if in your mind you're aware that Hashem is right in front of you, and therefore you abstain from doing averis, and therefore you're doing mitzvahs, that's called yira. What's the proof that it's yira? Because Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai says that meira shemayim k'meira basar v'dam. Inside.
But that's meira. He doesn't have meira.
What's the meira from a basar v'dam? Basar v'dam hedyet. What's the meira?
Epis a shaykh, but if it doesn't.
I'm listening.
It's a basar v'dam, but
right.
You don't feel it.
In a chanami, so it has to be that real to you. But the question over here is, if I don't feel a yira, I don't feel that the Eibishter is so great, and I don't feel that pachad. I don't feel a pachad from the Eibishter, but the fact that I recognize that the Eibishter is right next to me and not doing it, that already is considered also meira. Let's do this inside. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai said to his Talmidim, Yiratzain, She meira shemayim aleichem k'meira basar v'dam. Maybe the will of heaven, that you have the fear of heaven like you have the fear of your fellow human being. Teidu, chulu, teidu. What's the proof? What's the Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai says? What's my proof that this is something which is significant? That when a person does an aveda, what does he say? Shelo yirani adam. Chulu. He says, I don't want anyone to see me. And therefore, if we have the same attitude to Hashem, that we do what's right and we refrain from doing what's wrong, because Hashem is watching us, that too is called meira shemayim. Rak sheyira zu nikras yira tata. This yira which we're talking about, and when we say this yira, actually we're talking about all the yira that we're talking about in this entire perek. Not only this last madrega of yira that we're talking about. All the yira we're talking about is a yira tata, is a lower level of yira. V'yiras chet. It's a yiras chet, a fear of the sin. And later on, there's another madrega of yira, which is called yira ilah, a higher level of yira, which we're going to be introduced to in Mir Hashem in Perek Mem Gimel. But I want to point out that Alter Rebbe over here, he says everything we're talking about over here is yiras chet. Yiras chet means fear of a sin. What is the fear of a sin? The Alter Rebbe doesn't say yiras o'inish.
That would be the consequence of it.
Fear of punishment.
Fear of punishment. Why doesn't he talk about yiras o'inish? In other words, in this entire Perek, note that the Alter Rebbe never spoke about punishment, not once, even though he's talking about yira. And usually when you talk to a person and you talk about yira, and you say, how do you think about what kind of meditation should a person think about if he wants to arrive at Yiras Hashem? So usually, images of Gehenna start being conjured. The Alter Rebbe doesn't talk about Gehenna, he doesn't talk about punishment. He talks about Yiras Chet, the fear of Hashem, and a fear of Hashem which causes you to fear doing a sin, because you know that doing a sin, doing an Aveira, goes against Hashem's Ratzon. Why doesn't the Alter Rebbe talk about Yiras Ha'inish, fear of Ha'inish?
That would be a lower level.
And why doesn't he talk about that lower level? We're talking about low levels.
But this seems to be a little bit higher level.
Let's go back for a second. Why do we need to have Yira? Let's go back to what we spoke about. Why do we need to have Yira? Let's go back to what we spoke about last week. Why is Yira important? And why does the Alter Rebbe insist that Yira is the foundation of everything, and you have to have Yira every single time you do a mitzvah? And if there is no Yira, as the Alter Rebbe said, there is no Kedusha there. Because what is the opposite of Yira? The opposite of Yira is Ava. And what's the problem with Ava? The problem with Ava, as we discussed, is that it's Yeshus. It's me. It's all about me. And the entry point into our relationship with Hashem is bittul. And by the way, this is not only true in terms of our relationship with Hashem, but this is also true in terms of human relationships. Something which we might have spoken about in the past is that in Yiddishkeit, marriage is a two-stage process. That was a chiddush by Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah, there was the only part of marriage that existed was called nisuin. And also, even today, by not Yidden, also the marriage is nisuin. And by Yidden, what we have is Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvaysav. We have a special bracha which we make, and that is a birchas erusin. That there's a previous stage before nisuin, and that's called erusin or kiddushin. And in the stage of erusin or kiddushin, the man and the woman, the kiddushin happens when the man puts the ring on the finger of the woman and says to her, "Hareat mikudash asli." That's the way kiddushin is done today. I mean, technically, we don't need to have a ring. It could be anything which is has monetary value to it, anything which is a shava pruta. But l'poel today, which is done by the ring, and at that moment, there's the kiddushin that happens, and then the Mesader kiddushin takes a cup and makes a special bracha for this mitzvah of kiddushin, the mitzvah of erusin. And then under the chuppah, they take a little break, and that break is they're mechabit someone during that time to read the ksuba, which reading the ksuba doesn't have any halachic value to it. There's no the ksuba wasn't read. It's not nothing was wrong with the marriage. There's no Indian dafka to read the ksuba, but that's a way of making a separation between the two stages, the kiddushin, and then afterwards the nisuin. And in fact, in the olden times, there used to be a very long break between kiddushin and nisuin. Sometimes even a year. They would take a break between a year between the kiddushin and nisuin, and then for various reasons, today we don't do that anymore, and we do both together under the chuppah. And the chuppah is the sheva brachas, and the chuppah is being under the chuppah. That's the nisuin. And then the yichud room, that all accomplishes the nisuin. What's the difference between kiddushin and nisuin? When the man puts the ring on the finger of the wife, they are husband and wife and they're fully married. If chas v'shalom they want to part ways, they need to have a get. They're 100% married. The wife has the din of a ish. She's a married woman. Husband is a married man. They're 100% married. There's only one caveat, only one little something, and that is that after the kiddushin, the husband and wife, they're not allowed to live together, which is what we say in the bracha. V'asar lanu esar rusais. The husband and wife are not allowed to live together until the nisuin. So again, this stage where they're married but they can't live together, that's a chiddush that happened by Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah, that didn't exist. There was no kiddushin before Matan Torah. And it's a very strange stage. You think into it.
What is the purpose of it?
What is the purpose of it? What is the relationship if they can't be together? What's the point of having the marriage, but they're usher to each other? So one of the answers that's brought down is that the nisuin stage is where the husband and wife benefit from each other. They live together in one home, and the husband brings the wife flowers, and the wife cooks the husband supper. I'm sorry if I stereotype the genders over here. The wife could bring the husband supper and flowers, and the husband can make the wife supper, whatever it may be. But the point is that in a marriage, it's a symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship. And before Matan Torah, that was marriage. Marriage was two people who enjoyed each other, benefited each other, and therefore they decided to live together with each other. And by the way, also there was no get before Matan Torah. When the husband and wife both decided, you know what? We're not benefiting each other, we're just annoying each other and aggravating each other. So at that point, they went their separate ways. There was no din of a get. And then the Torah came along and introduced a new paradigm in a relationship, which is that the relationship isn't about what you are benefiting. It's not you have a relationship because you benefit, but you have benefits because you have a relationship. Verstehst? So therefore, we start with the Kiddushin, we start with the relationship. There's no benefits. What's our connection to each other? We have a soul connection to each other. So and afterwards, what follows is the benefits. So therefore, the Yisoid is a strong one. The foundation of the relationship is not I like you, you like me. The foundation is one of commitment. Kiddushin represents the commitment, the Nisuin represents the benefits. And today, when we live in a society where people again view marriage so much as something which is benefits instead of commitment, that's why so many marriages break up, because the basis is the benefits, and the benefits can wear away, and there isn't that underlying commitment which causes the people to say, okay, we're not benefiting each other, but we're still committed to each other, so let's work together and try to make that we should be able to get along with each other and that we should benefit each other. If that basic underlying commitment is missing, so then the whole foundation is a very, very weak foundation. And by the way, this explains many things. It explains the shidduch system, why we have a shidduch system, because it's all about our view of marriage is that it's about the commitment and not about the benefits. And the whole world, they're going and looking for marriage. They're looking for the person who's going to benefit them, but that's a very, very weak foundation for marriage. What is a relationship? A relationship is that I'm doing something for my spouse because I'm enjoying doing it for my spouse. Relationships, I'm doing something, and we're talking about husband and wife, but it's true really in every relationship. I'm doing something where it makes sense to me. And by the way, in Hebrew, something interesting. What does the word tam mean in Hebrew?
Flavor.
Tam means flavor. What else does it mean?
Plain. Reason. No?
A reason. Very good.
Yeah.
Right. What's the connection between flavor and reason?
Flavor is your reason.
When you do something, and if there's a reason for it, then you have a tam in it. You have a geschmack. You know why you're doing it. It makes sense to you. When you do something and there is no reason, you have no tam. There's no reason and there's no geschmack. There's no flavor. There's no enjoyment in it also. If you are in quote unquote a relationship with someone, but everything you're doing it is because of a tam. When we say a tam, either you have a reason for it or you enjoy doing it. Did you really do something for the other?
You're doing it for yourself.
You're doing it for yourself. Where does a relationship begin?
By giving to somebody else.
But when you give, but it's not enough to give, because you can do something, and if you're doing it because you have a tam, if you're doing it because there's a reason, thank you so much, then once again it's about you. Let's talk about it. If I am doing something for my wife, the reason why I'm doing it is because I know that I'm going to get something in return from her tomorrow. Am I really doing it for her?
It depends what you think.
But then I'm not, right? I'm not. I'm doing it for myself. So if we're talking about me if a relationship means me stepping out of myself and being there for someone else, that means doing something without a tam. That means that when the other person asks you to do something, you do it. Why? Because the other person asked me to do it. And because I respect that person. Not even because I love the person, but because I respect that person. Because love again is about me. But because I respect that person. Respect is already similar to yira. I'm doing it because they want it, not because I want to do it necessarily. And that's why chukim play, by the way, such an important part in mitzvahs. You know, if different mitzvahs, some of them are chukim. Chukim are mitzvahs that don't make sense. Why did Hashem give us chukim? Chukim are the biggest gift that Hashem is able to give us. Because when we do a chuk, it's the ultimate stepping out of ourselves and saying, Hashem, I'm doing this for you. I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense. And as Rashi says, on Zeischuk Satayr, the Goyim come and say, you're idiots, why are you doing this? It makes no sense, it's a mishigas. And we say, you know why we're doing it? Because Hashem told us to do it. And there's a word from the Rebbe by Hanukkah, when it says, Lashkicham, that the Yevanim came, the Greeks came, Laviram, Lashkicham Teirasecha, Laviram Chukei Ritzenecha. They wanted to make us not do Chukei Ritzenecha. the Greeks, they were wise people, they were intellectuals, they were philosophers, and that they understood the value of Torah. They understood the value of mitzvahs. They saw the wisdom in it. We have in this week's parsha where Moshe tells the Yidden that Torah is chachmaschem ubinaschem le'eni ha'amim. That goyim, they look at the Torah and they're astounded at the wisdom that's in Torah. And by the way, as the generations come along today, people look at the Torah and realize the incredible wisdom that there is in Torah. The Greeks also recognized it. They said, you want to learn Torah, learn Torah. You want to do mitzvahs, do mitzvahs. But the chukim, the mitzvahs that make no sense, that we, as philosophers, we can't condone that. That makes no sense to do a mitzvah. And then the Rebbe points out, they didn't say, La'avira mechukecha, La'avira mechuke ritzenecha. What is it? The chukim which are your will. Isn't that a redundancy? Isn't every chayk Hashem's will? But on a deeper level, what the Greeks were telling the Yidden at that time was, you want to do those mitzvahs that don't make sense, we're fine with that. Fine. Why would you do those mitzvahs? Because you would say, Hashem gave me a mitzvah. Some mitzvahs I understand. Other mitzvahs, I don't understand. Why don't I understand them? Because Hashem is so much wiser than me that He has reasons which I can't, in my limited mind, I can't possibly grasp those reasons. Says the Greeks, if that's why you want to do the chukim, go ahead. That makes sense. That's logical. It's logical that sometimes you have to do something even though you don't understand the reason why. But why are you doing it? Because you understand that there is a reason. But you're not wise enough to understand the reason. But the Yidden said, no, you don't get it. When we're doing the chukim, it's not that we're doing it and we're saying we're doing it that even though I don't understand, but Hashem has a reason, so I'm doing it for that reason. No, you don't get it. It's the Yidden were telling the Greeks. We're doing the chukim because Hashem wants us to do them. There is no reason. I don't need a reason. I don't care if there's a reason. It doesn't matter to me if there's a reason. There's the Avart that Alter Rebbe said in Likutei Torah, that if Hashem would have commanded us all day to chop wood, that would be not 613 mitzvahs. We had one mitzvah every day. We had to wake up and say Maida'ani and run into the forest, chop wood until the sun sets, and then come and just leave the wood there. Then we would do that. Why? Because that's what Hashem wants. So the biggest gift that Hashem gave us was the chukim. Because every other mitzvah that we do, there's the involvement of self. There's I'm doing it because I understand, and because I have a geshmak, because I have a tam in it. And then there's certain mitzvahs Hashem is saying, you're going to do these mitzvahs. Why? Because I want you to do them. And that's where we have our relationship with Hashem. Because a relationship begins when you step out of yourself, and it's not about what benefit, it's not about what reason. I'm doing it because you want me to do it. And the truth is, there has to be this element of chukim in every mitzvah that we do. Even the mitzvahs that make sense. Also, we have to do them because they're the ratzon of Hashem. Only thing is that mitzvahs that make sense, Hashem also wants us to understand them. So that also has to be, we have to do it because Hashem wants. So not only am I doing the mitzvah because you want Hashem? Hashem, you want me to understand the reason why? I'll also understand the reason why. You want me to do the mitzvah with the understanding of the reason why? I'll do that also. But it's about Hashem, it's whatever you want. And in every single relationship, the real relationship begins when you step out of yourself and you're there for the other. Where and when are you there for the other? When you say, V'oisei savaydu. What do you want me to do? I'm doing it. Why? It doesn't matter to me. I'm doing it because you want me to do it. That's where the Kedusha is. In all the mitzvahs, where is the Kedusha? Where do we leave ourselves? Is only in the Yira. In the Ava, at the end of the day, if we only have Ava, then it's about me. What I want, and what I find geshmak, and what I desire, and what I find to be meaningful and purposeful, and something which is satisfying. So Ava is about me. Like going back, Ava is like the Nesuin, and the Yira is like the Kedusha, the foundation. No benefits. How about Yiras HaOinish? If the reason why I do a mitzvah, or the reason why I abstain from doing an Aveira, is because I'm worried about a punishment. Who is that about?
Me?
It's again about me. There is no kedusha in that. Yira means I'm doing it because you want me to do it. Hashem, you're my king, and you need me to be your servant. And I'm there, I'm serving you. It's not about me. To a certain extent, Yiras Ha'inish is the antithesis of true Yira. If the definition of Yira, so again, if we translate Yira as fear, so yeah, I fear being, I fear being punished. I fear going to Gehenna. But the Alter Rebbe is taking us to a different understanding of Yira. The understanding of Yira, as the Alter Rebbe explains it here in this Perek, it's not about the emotion of fear. It's not about what's going to happen to me. Yira means the idea of awe, of reverence. Hashem told me to do it, and I am so in awe. Just imagine a big tzaddik, like I said last week. Imagine, the Baal Shem Tov appears to you and says, "Go get me a cup of water." You go get the cup of water. Why are you getting the cup of water? Is there any ounce of yeshus, of desire inside? What do you mean why? I can't not. This great tzaddik just asked me for a cup of water. You're overcome with yira, and you go and you get it. It's not about you. It's all about him. You told me to get it. I'm getting it for you. There's no cheshbon. Do I want to? Do I not want to? What benefit? There's no such thought in your head. That's the yira that we have to have for Hashem. Is pashat a yira of Hashem, I'm doing it because you told me to. And all the madrigas of yira, from the higher ones to the lower ones, which we discussed in this Perek up until this point, is this idea. Is yiras chet. I fear to do an Aveda, not I fear the consequence. I fear to do the Aveda. Why? Because Hashem is watching me and telling me what to do. I can't do otherwise. And that is the Yesod of the whole Aveda. That's where the Kedusha is. The Kedusha is in the simple obedience to Hashem.
So why does he call it a low level? That should be a high level. If that's the Yesod, that's the fundamental of how your relationship should be, is all for Hashem. So why does he call it a low level? So what would be the higher level then? Amen. How much higher could you get from this point?
That's a great question. You'll have to keep on coming because we're going to find that on Perek Mem Gimel.
I heard that answer many times.
You should write down every single time I tell you we're going to get to a certain Perek. You should write it down. It's always there when we get there. It's not, Mem Gimel is not that far away. It's 2 parakim down. It's 2 parakim down. If you look even at the first lines, he starts al yira tatazu and then he moves on. But there's a higher yira called yira yilah. We'll talk about it. We'll get there. Get there soon. Yeah.
So basically we're saying here is yira means it's about the other. So is this sound what I'm going to say? And that is that yira. I mean, if you look at the word yira, you see ra'ah, right? Like seeing, right? So like yiras Hashem could you translate it like you're seeing God? It's like seeing God. You're recognizing when you see something, then there that thing is. So what is it? Isn't it the same word as see, but with a yud? So it's like, with a yud. So you're seeing the yud. That yud is a representative of Hashem. So it's like yiras Hashem is like seeing God, acknowledging, recognizing. I've
never seen that pshat, but it sounds like there's validity to it. Yes. And this is the Yesod. We're saying here, this is the Yesod of Avodas Hashem. But it's also very much the Yesod of Chassidus in general, and this is what the Baal Shem Tov was trying to accomplish with Chassidus. This idea of serving Hashem. The Baal Shem Tov came along, and he made this revolution. And the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, he had a lot of, as we know, there was a lot of hisnagdus, there was a lot of opposition. And the opposition to the Baal Shem Tov was mostly from the elite, from the big Talmidei Chachamim. Not all of them. There were many Talmidei Chachamim who became Chassidim of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezritch. The Alter Rebbe started off not as a Chassid. The Alter Rebbe was born in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, and he became a Chassid. And the Alter Rebbe, we all know what kind of incredible Talmid Chacham and Goyin he was. But the opposition was primarily from the elite, from the big Talmidei Chachamim. And the reason why was because this was the message that the Baal Shem Tov was coming and telling the masses. You want Kedusha? You have to be an Eved of Hashem. And if not, you can be a Baki B'Shas. And you can do every mitzvah ta'ati. But if it's all about you, even if the you is Avas Hashem, but if it's all about you and your Yeshus, then to Kedusha you have no Shaykhs. And therefore the Baal Shem Tov, as we know, he was mechaviv. He held very, very dear and very precious dafke, the simple Yidden. We know the Baal Shem Tov had a tremendous chavivus for the Pashta Yidden, more so than the big Talmidei Chachamim, which obviously raises the question, which I think we have spoken about in the past also. Why should a Pashta Yid be more precious than a Talmid Chacham? What advantage does he have? That he didn't learn Shas? You know, Baal Shem Tov looks at two Yidden, you learn Shas, you didn't learn Shas. Ah, look at that Yid, he didn't learn Shas. How special? How does that make sense? Why would the Baal Shem Tov have this special place in his heart for the Pashta Yidden? What do they have? If you're going to want to say, you want to tell me that the Baal Shem Tov had such Avos Yisrael, that he even had a tremendous love for the Pashta Yidden, that's amazing. That makes sense. Avos Yisrael, you have to love every single Yid. He loved every single Yid, even the Yid who was a very Pashta Yid. That I can accept. But why would he have this special chavivus, this special affinity for the Pashta Yidden? But now we understand. What is the hallmark of a Pashta Yid? The hallmark of a Pashta Yid is that he's a soldier. He's not a big Talmid Chacham. He doesn't know the whole Shas. He didn't learn all the different Sfarim. All he knows is one thing. Hashem told me I have to wake up in the morning and daven. I wake up in the morning and daven. Hashem tells me I have to put on tefillin. I put on tefillin. Hashem tells me I have to keep kosher. I keep kosher. Hashem tells me I have to can't work. With a pashtus. And the Baal Shem Tov looked at that and said, wow, look at that Kedusha. And this is a Kedusha that Talmid Chacham, because he's a Baki B'Shas and therefore is so arrogant and so full of himself, he doesn't have that Kedusha. He doesn't have that Bittul Tashem. To him, everything makes sense and everything's beautiful and he's enjoying life and it's a meaningful life and he's loving the learning. And where is Hashem? Where's Hashem in all of this? There's a story that said about Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev. You know, Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev also was an incredible Goyen. That he had Avos Yisrael for every Yid. But there's a cryptic story about him.
I mean, what's cryptic?
A cryptic. Cryptic means it's not secret. It's a story which is
hidden.
It's like a riddle a little. You have to decipher what it means. Sorry?
It's a curveball.
It's a curveball. When he came back from the Maggid of Mezrich, he came back to where he lived, to his home, and his father-in-law was a very chashuv Yid in the city where he lived. I don't remember the name of the city. And his father wasn't a chassid. Rabbi Yitzchak became a chassid, but his mishpacha wasn't a chassidim. And Rabbi Yitzchak, he was known also as a big Iluy, a big Lamdan, even though that everyone looked at him as a little strange because he became a chassid. And he was home for Simchas Torah. And Simchas Torah, so because his father-in-law was a very chashuv person in the community, was a parnas in the community, so they were mechabed Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev to say Ata Haresa. So Rabbi Yitzchak goes and takes his talis, is about to put on his talis, to go say Ata Haresa. And he holds on to the talis for a little. And then he puts it down. And though everyone's watching him, behaving strangely, again he picks up the talis. And he holding it and thinking, and again he puts it down. And this happens another time. He picks up the talis, and again and this time he puts it down, and he gives a scream. He says, if you're such a lamdan, if you're such a Yireh Shamayim, and you're such a chassid, then go say Ata Haresa yourself. And he stormed off the bima and went back to his place. And even though people came and begged him to go say Ata Haresa, he refused, and that's it. And they had to find someone else to say Ata Haresa. And his father-in-law obviously was fuming. This was a public humiliation. His son-in-law acting so strangely. And later, when Rabbi Yitzchak was asked what happened, he said, when I got up and I was about to go into say Ata Haresa, so suddenly I hear my Yetzer Hara telling me, wow, this is unbelievable, this is great, let's go do Ata Haresa. So I tell the Yetzer Hara, what are you doing here? Get away. I'm going to do this myself. Yetzer Hara says, why can't I come along? He says, what do you mean, why can't you come along? Who are you? So my Yetzer Hara answers and says, and who are you? So I said, me? I'm a big lamdan. I know the whole Shas. I learned by the biggest teachers. I've learned so much Torah. Yetzer Hara says, yeah, I was with you the whole time. I learned it also. I'm also a lamdan. So that was the first time that he put down the, and then I tell the Yetzer Hara, yeah, but I'm a chassid. I'm a Yireh Shamayim. I went to the Rebbe. I went to the Maggid. I listened to the Mamarim. I heard the way he gave Hadracha. I listened. I worked on myself. To which the Yetzer Hara responded, I was with you. With you there the whole time. I also was by the Rebbe. I also heard the Mamarim. I went into Yichidus also. Why can't I say Ata Haresa? So at that point, I lost my patience. I put on the talis and I told the Yetzer Hara, if you're such a Yireh Shamayim and you're such a chassid, you're such a lamdan, go do it by yourself. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Now you understand what I mean by a cryptic story?
Yeah, because
What does this mean?
on the surface it's very hard to understand what happened.
Rabbi Yitzchak was saying, you can be a chassid, and you can be Yireh Shamayim, you can be a lamdan, and you can learn, and you can daven, and you can do mitzvahs, and all along, Yetzer Hara is there with you, and it's all about you. And that's what the Yetzer Hara was saying. When Rabbi Yitzchak realized that he couldn't do the Ata Haresa. There's a word from the Frierdiker Rebbe. You know that it says, there's a Maimer Chazal, that the Yetzer Hara, Kachi u'munusay shel Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara, this is how he works. Today it tells you do one thing, and the next day it tells you do something else, until it goes and tells you to do to go worship Avodah Zarah. So the way it's normally understood, this Maimer Chazal is, the first day it tells you to do a small Aveda. Yetzer Hara doesn't the first day one day come to you and say, bow down to Avodah Zarah. First he tells you to do a small Aveda. And then he comes and tells you next day do a bigger Aveda. And slowly he desensitizes you until he tells you go and worship Avodah Zarah. Frierdiker Rebbe says, the first day, what does the Yetzer Hara come and tell you to do? Do a mitzvah. And you're like, yeah, I want to do a mitzvah. I'm going to listen to you. Once the Yetzer Hara has you in his grip, you're listening to him, even though that the first time you listened to him was to do a mitzvah. The next day ready, he can get you to do something else, until finally one day he can get you to worship Avodah Zarah also. The first day the Yetzer Hara comes and says, do a mitzvah, it's geschmack. It feels good, it's meaningful, it's beautiful. Don't do the mitzvah because Hashem told you. Do it because I'm telling you. Do it because it makes you feel good. The moment that happens, then you're ready. You're not an Eved of Hashem, you're an Eved of the Yetzer Hara, and the next day he can tell you, oh, yesterday it felt good to do a mitzvah. Today I have something else that feels good. It's not such a mitzvah. And the next day tells you, I have something else that feels good. It's an Aveda. But you're already used to doing things that feel good. And the Baal Shem Tov came along, and that was his big chiddush to Yidden. His big chiddush was that it sounds like a big chiddush, we have to start serving Hashem. It's not about how much Torah you learn. It's not about how many mitzvahs you do. It's about how much kedusha is in the Torah and the mitzvahs. And the kedusha comes from the bittul. The kedusha comes from doing something simply because Hashem tells you to do it. Let's go right here inside. So 1 second. All the different levels that we spoke about up until this point of Yira, whether it's a Yira which is flaming in your heart, whether it's a Yira which is in your mind, whether it's even not a Yira in your mind, but the simple fact that when you're doing a mitzvah, you stop and you think, I'm doing this, why? This is the Yesod. That before we do a mitzvah, we have to stop and think, why am I doing this mitzvah? because Hashem told me to do it. This sounds like so pashut, right? But that's what the Alter Rebbe is telling us here. Before you do a mitzvah, stop and say, I'm doing it because Hashem wants me to. Take a moment, think about the godless of Hashem, how Hashem, the great Hashem, is standing next to you and telling you to do the mitzvah. It's not about whether you'll get reward, it's not about whether you get punishment, it's nothing about that. It's not because you're enjoying the mitzvah, you're doing the mitzvah because Hashem wants you to do it. That's the Kedusha. We're going to start again, page Nun Zayin, 3 lines from the top. Rak sheyira zu nikras yira tata. This yira is called yira tata, the lower level of yira, the yiras chet. Shekedemes l'chachmaseh. This is the yira that comes before a person arrives at the level of chachma, which we're not going to explain well right now, because again, we're going to get to this in Perek Mem Gimel.
3 lines from the bottom.
Yeah, I'm sorry, did I say 3 lines from the top? Yeah. The yira ilah, then there's a higher level of yira called yira boishas. Chulu. The is yira chulu, because as the Zohar says, there's yira and then there's yira. There's a lower level of yira and there's a higher level of yira. But regardless, aval b'li yira klal, it doesn't make a difference. Lower level yira, higher level yira. If you have no yira, your mitzvah is not going to fly up only with ava, only with love. Just like a bird cannot fly with one wing, because fear of Hashem and love of Hashem are the 2 wings, and you need to have both, as it says in Tikkunei Zohar. There's actually Hayom Yom, where the Rebbe says, he brings down from the Frierdiker Rebbe. He says over there that through incredible amount of hard work, so a lamdin, even a very big lamdin, can reach the level of a pashat yid with Kabbalah's oil, that even when he's sleeping, you could see that he's a soldier, that the fear of Hashem is upon him. I remember reading the Hayom Yom a few years ago, and I'm thinking, if someone who isn't a chassid looks at this, they'll be convinced that there's a typo here. Now, I got mixed up. It's supposed to say that through a tremendous amount of work, even a pashta yid can reach the level of the big lamdim. Here you have the exact opposite. Through a tremendous avodah, because it's not natural for someone. It's actually harder for someone. The more you know, the more you understand, and the more you become a spiritually complete person, the harder it is to maintain this fundamental level of yira, this fundamental level of Eidos Hashem, and not to lose sight. I'm sitting down to learn a daf Gemara, and it's very, very enjoyable. But why am I doing it? I'm doing it because Hashem told me to. And absent that, there is no Kedusha in there. And on the other hand, my grandfather, Olav Shalom, he was a Baal Tshuva. He became a Baal Tshuva in the 50s, an American Jew, born in America. He served in the American Army, and during World War II, he was in Japan, Okinawa. And then in the early 50s, he became a Baal Tshuva, him and together with my grandmother, Allah Shalom. And when I think of a pashta yid like the Baal Shem Tov, I think of my grandfather. He was a very, very pashta yid, but mamash a soldier. He was up every morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, off to minyan, off to shir, and he used to learn. He used to go every day to shir. I remember Shabbos, he used to sit and learn Gemara. And I used to look at him. He probably understood 30% of what he was reading. He never went to yeshiva. He didn't learn yeshiva, and he wasn't a Gemara cup. But that wasn't the point. To him was, why am I learning? Because that's what a yid does. Hashem says you have to learn Gemara. You have to learn Gemara. And like the contrary, the less you enjoy it, the easier it is to be a soldier. The trick is the one who enjoys, like the daf Gemara. And still, even though I enjoy it and enjoy the Torah mitzvahs, to have that baseline of ana'avda the kuchabrichu, and understanding that without that you're missing the reishis avodah ikra v'sharsha, the whole basis, the whole kedusha behind it is missing. Why am I doing it? Because I'm a yid, and a yid listens to Hashem. A yid learns Torah. A yid does mitzvahs, and that's the baseline of everything. On the other hand, at the same time, v'chein hayira levada. But Yira alone also isn't enough. Yira alone, as much as we're up until now, the last few weeks, it sounds like we're busy disparaging Ava. We're talking about how Ava is all Metzias, but Yira alone also isn't enough. And the mitzvah is not going to fly up above only with Yira. Aveda 7. Even though that with Yira alone, you're an Eved. If you do a mitzvah, you have no Ava, the Avedas Eved there is. But for it to have the spiritual content to fly up above, you also have to be a son to Hashem, not only an Eved. To awaken the love which is hidden within your heart, at least that it should be in your mind. This week's parsha, to remember one's love for Hashem in one's mind and in one's will, the desire to connect to Hashem, and this should be your kavanah when you're learning Torah, when you're doing the mitzvah, a kavanah of ava, the kavanah that I love Hashem and I want to connect to Him, to connect to Hashem. Nafshi elokis v'chiyunas, I want to connect to Hashem, my neshama, I want to connect to Hashem, my nefesh bahamis, ulevushehem, and also the levushim kiniskar liyil, as mentioned earlier. So you need to have ava, but the ava needs to be on the foundation of Yira. If the ava is on the foundation of Yira, then not only is the ava valid and beautiful, but it's necessary. Yira alone is only one wing. Once you have the bittul, then you're ready, as we spoke last week, then you're ready to build up a new mitzias, but a mitzias which is a bittul dika mitzias. Not your natural egotistical mitzias. I love, my foundation is Yiras Hashem. My foundation is that I need to serve Hashem. I need to do what Hashem says. Once I have that down, now I'm ready also to develop an ava for Hashem, a love for Hashem, an identity, but a holy identity. My native identity, my natural identity is klippa, is not holy. I put aside that identity, I'm mevatel it through yira. Once I'm mevatel my natural identity, now I'm ready now to build up a new identity, an identity of kedusha. So yes, ava is about me, ava is about yeshus, but now it's a holy me, because it's a me which is based on Yiras Hashem. And this is a general rule. We start with Yira, and once you have the Yira, Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem, once you have the Yira, then we start building the Ava, then we start building the Metzias. The Baal Shem Tov, he didn't go to everyone and say, remain a Pashta Yid. He didn't want that there shouldn't be Talmidei Chachamim Chas v'Shalom. He didn't want that. The Pashta Yid is the foundation. And on that foundation, then we already build a binyan of Kedusha. Then we already build a holy edifice. And this is something which is also, we have this in the cycle of the year. We're saying the beginning of the Avodah is Yira. Yira, the idea of Yira is Bittul.
I want to just comment on this last line, that from experience I find that by chazring the Chasidus, not just reading it once, but the Chazara is of utmost importance. Then you could feel the breakers instructions, but reading it once, going to a shir without Chazara, it doesn't produce these effects. So it's of utmost importance. This leads to excitement, this leads to dvekas, and it leads to you feel better, a whole different davening and a whole different day.
That's true.
So it's
it's not only about learning once and I know it. So we say the beginning of Avodah is Yira and Bittul. What is our beginning as a nation? Our beginning of where did we begin as a nation? Is the Yom Tov Pesach? No. Yom Tov Pesach was Ata v'chartanu mikol amin, was when Hashem chose us. But the Hilada and Yecheskel, it describes Yitzias Mitzrayim in terms of the birth of our nation. The birth of our nation of Klal Yisrael happened by Yitzias Mitzrayim. Lave lekachas legoy mikerev goy. That was our birth. And that is also the first Yom Tov. It is the beginning of the Avodah. What do we do on Pesach? We make sure that we get rid of every single trace of chametz. Only matzah. There's going to be no yeshus, no gaiva, no me. If I want to begin my relationship with Hashem, this is when Hashem takes the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. I want to leave my Mitzrayim and start my relationship with Hashem. I want to leave Egypt and have this relationship. The first step is Yira. First step is, Hashem, tell me where to go. You want me to go in the desert? I'm here. I have no food, that doesn't matter. Absolute bittul. Hashem, tell me what, when, where. Ana Hashem kani avdecha. Ana Hashem doesn't mean please Hashem. Ana, that's Ana with the aleph. Ana Hashem kani avdecha is with a hey. Aleph nun hey. Ana, tell me where. Why kani avdecha? I'm your servant. Whatever you want to do, I'm doing it. There isn't an ounce of ego, there isn't an ounce of pride, there isn't an ounce of me, there isn't an ounce of enjoyment, there isn't an ounce of even ava. That all doesn't exist on Pesach. All that is about me, and that doesn't exist. Because as the Alter Rebbe says, Reishis HaAvodah v'Ikra v'Sharsh, for the very beginning of Avodah, is Yira. And that is symbolized by matzah. Then the Yidden, they go out in the desert, and on this foundation of Yiras Hashem, for 7 weeks, they work on themselves. They work on their mivar, their midas. They work on their midas, and then they arrive at Mount Torah. They arrive at Har Sinai. They have Mount Torah, the Yom Tov HaShuas. And what's interesting is that in Shavuos, in the Beis Hamikdash, it's the only time that there was a carbon sibur that had chametz in it. That shtei alechem. As the Torah says, chametz te'afena. There's only 2 times when chametz is allowed into the Beis Hamikdash. Everything else is matzah. One's the Shavuos, another one is carbon yachid, carbon taida. 7 weeks ago, a speck of chametz is the Isser Kares. Bal Yira, Bal Yimatzah. Forget about not eating chametz. You get chase after every crumb and burn it. There's no other Isser like that in the Torah. Okay, Avodah Zarah. But in general, every other, some things I'm not allowed to eat. There are some things that it's not only not allowed to eat them, not allowed to have hana from them. Basar b'chalav is asar b'hana. But if I have basar b'chalav sitting in my cabinet, I don't have a mitzvah to burn it. There's no chiyuv, there's no isser in having it, in owning it. And chametz, bal yira, bal yamatzah. You have to chase after every crumb and get rid of it. That's how careful we have to be in the beginning of our avodah, that it should be yiras Hashem, nothing about me. And then 7 weeks later, suddenly, not only are we allowed to own chametz, not only are we allowed to we're bringing chametz as a carbon in the Beis Hamikdash. But that's the same thing over here. That yira is the foundation, but ultimately yira without ava is only one wing. You need to have the ava. You need to have the chametz. Chametz represents a expansive feeling, which is ava, whereas chametz where yira is a constricted feeling. Ava is an expansive feeling. You guys understand what I'm saying? Yira, you feel small, you feel constricted. Ava, love, is a very expansive feeling. It's chametz, and that's fine. You need that ava, you need that ego, that identity, that desire, that love, that pleasure, that tam, which we have. Matzah doesn't have a tam, it's lechem oini. On Pesach we don't want a tam. And that's why bala matzah your yoytza, because it doesn't have a tam. But Shavuos we need a tam. So yes, ava and yira are both important, but yira is the foundation. Yira is where the kedusha is. Yira is where you become an evet Hashem. And when you're evet Hashem, then you're one with Hashem. Once you are evet of Hashem, now it's time also to become a ben. Now it's time also to develop ava, as we'll continue discussing Mir Hashem next time.